the experience which I'm being asked to live is just too much. There's no options, there's no choice. Really, further cementing that statement I said, that this is planet hell, at least for myself. And from my perspective, this is planet hell. I suppose the ways of old have gone out the window. Mental health has been feeding me stuff in the background, as it does when it's real. But it shouldn't be real at the moment. I'm in terror. It doesn't have a right to. But it's been feeding me stuff in the background, and it's been telling me about that old saying, there's a few. The honour of one is the honour of all. The shame of one is the shame of all. And it really applies to the Musketeers, all for one and one for all. But this is absolutely disgusting, the experience that I'm going through at the moment. And I'm going through it. Nobody else is experiencing this. Nobody else is suffering this. Nobody else is in shame towards the rest of humanity like I am in the moment. From my experience now, nobody else holds that shame. You can't. To the level of truth I'm living, in terms of how painful it is. There's no act. Unfortunately, all I see is smiley faces, all I see is miserable faces. And in that place, nobody is able to really connect, because when it's all for one and one for all, if I had things in my life, it would be easier. There's no way you can find yourself in that place and you're honest with the level of pain you're experiencing, the level of suffering you're experiencing, and walk past someone in the street that's suffering terror to the extent I am, when you're not. And not drop everything and go and be there for them in whatever which way. That's all for one and one for all. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing is people living their lives. That's the truth. The truth of reality is terror. And unfortunately, the people, I know I can see the terror in people, the terror in people's lives, despite the fact that they have things. But obviously they have not got to the point where you've truly aware of that terror and what it means. There's no spirituality here. There's no love. There's no people. There's no anything. It's just disgusting hell and terror. The terror I'm in right now, and my mental health is trying to push silly little things on me to say, this is a problem. This is a problem. Look at this. And I'm like, I'm getting worked up. I'm not able to focus, and I just almost all of a sudden got annoyed at this thing I would have got annoyed at countless of times in the past. But the truth is, it's not that I'm annoyed at. It's the level of terror I am in. And what my mental health is asking me to look at is not an annoyance in any way. But because I'm in terror, I can't look at that thing at the level of terror I'm in. It's like finding out you've just gone to war, coming home and your whole street being bombed. And then you're thinking about tomorrow's bills that you have to pay. And you're getting annoyed at the bills, and then you realise your life, and you look at you think about the bills, and you look at your life, and you think about the bills, and you realise you were getting annoyed a second ago at the bills that you have to pay. Do you think it's possible for a human mind to appropriately feel a truthful emotion towards those bills if that's what's just happened to you? Forget that the bill was to pay the gas for the house that's just been levelled. It's an impossibility. The mind creates a sickness on autopilot. Oh, look at the bills. I think about the bills that you have to pay tomorrow. And due to the past, it knows what the feeling of those bills feels like. And it says, think about the bills instead. It's less painful than reality. And you'll feel the worst that you've ever felt about those bills that you have to pay, despite the fact that of the situation. That's every single one of us with life. Every time we get angry, every time we feel a thing, it doesn't compare to the terror we are in first. The Thich Nhat Hanh, who was one of my teachers in this life, passed away recently. He said, treat anger like a little friend, like someone that pops up, and form a relationship with it. But that's the whole point of meditation and practice in this life. I don't know if it's the Buddhist explore Buddhism enough, but that's what it looks like. Presence in this life is the acknowledgement of terror. I'm sure there are other ways to be present, but if terror is present as a reality, I don't know if the other things have a chance. And you could go and spend the rest of your life meditating like a monk to get as close to that presence as possible. And or to make yourself as strong as possible, so you never have to get to the other side, which is terror. Isn't real. I'm starting to think that there's something to pain to understand in relationship to terror. Because how I've been in pain for the last few years is beyond me. When I look at my life and I realize I've been in terror for at least 4 or 5 years, if not longer. So I question, how is it that my mind has disassociated itself from reality, truth, and accepted the life of this world that we all have, and within that life it feeds me physical pain. In terror there is no pain. When you acknowledge the extent of your terror, that is terror. Everything else is a fight towards the terror. You can be terrorized, but when the terrorization stops, if you're fully aware of the situation, you are in terror. In other words, you could be tortured, and unfortunately you're not really going to be present in that time. But as soon as the torture stops, if you have full awareness, you realize the extent that your life is in, your body is in, your mind, heart and soul is in, and that is terror. And you do not think about the pain. You did not think about going to the cinema. You did not think about going to work. You did not contemplate bills. You did not contemplate DIY. It's an absolute practicality to the terror in the immediate moment, and everything that you have in front of you, all the resources you have available to end in that terror. That is it. That is the eternal presence. That's as close as I can imagine to getting back to whatever true consciousness is, where there is no body, there is no pain, there is no mind, there is nothing. But unfortunately, like a monk has to sit down and take the conscious mental assertion to meditate, if you find yourself in terror as a result of life, that is the pre-mandatory response. So where the monk sits down and meditates for an hour, he has a practice, he has an awareness, he has a memory of what he's done, they've done, she's done, all those years, all those times, and it's just natural. It's the same with terror. Everything you've ever experienced up until that point of terror is instantly known to you, and you act instantly in awareness to the situation. And in that place, I decided on an action plan. I don't know how it happened. And that action plan involves DIY, but I do not give a shit about the DIY. Oh, I love it. I've loved it in the past. It's great. And what it means in terms of creating a boat. Oh, I can't imagine how much that means to myself. But unfortunately in Terra, that means diddly squat. I'm not thinking about DIY. As I said, you're in absolute presence, absolute practicality. You're aware of your situation and circumstance. And I was aware of my circumstance, and my circumstance was immense pressure. I had to address the pressure. And unfortunately, some of that involves DIY. My mental health is doing its best during this process to take me into another reality and feed me little annoyances, feed me physical pain, feed me stories about how this and that is happening. When we realize that we're 8 billion strong, and we realize we're all in terror, we become 8 billion weak. And in that place, people might be able to start seeing the world for what it is. If you don't look at yourself as strong, you look at yourself as weak, and then you look at the world looks very different. All for one and one for all. How can you be there for anybody when you're in terror? All for one and one for all. How can I be there for anybody when I'm in terror? Spirituality doesn't exist. Spirituality is etheric, it's light, requires consciousness, it requires application. The density in the present moment of terror. There's no room for that. My mental health keeps telling me to sleep somewhere else because I'm sleeping on top of, I've built a box on top of it, but I'm sleeping on top of my batteries. I've got a new second-hand set of batteries. And the truth is, when you're in terror, you can't really feel the electromagnetic waves coming off those batteries to disturb you. You can't sleep. Oh, I'm sleeping. Well, it looks like sleep. I have sleep apnea, and it goes to prove it's not sleep. You can't sleep when you're in terror. Whatever this thing that the last medication induced in terms of taking away my sleep and forcing this passing out on a daily basis, I now wake up weaker every day from sleep. I used to sleep, wake up and continue the fight with strength from that sleep. Every time I pass out, so I pass out, I don't sleep. I don't consciously decide to sleep. I wake up 6 hours later or something. It always changes how long I'm out for. And I realize, and I think to myself, when did I'm not going to feel those electromagnetic fields unless my mental health wants me to feel. To such a severe extent it would be enough to kill me, I'm certain. My mental health wants me to worry about electromagnetic fields from batteries. The shame of one was the shame of all. The honor of one was the honor of all. The shame of one can become the shame of all. And the honor of one can become the honor of all. We have to clean up the whole world. We have to get rid of terror. Until then, the only thing that's true is the terror of one is the terror of all. And it's not, can I tune into that terror? It's a case of it's real, it's in your life, and you're tuned into it. That which you see as your life at the moment is that which your mental health has fed you as an alternative to the terror of all. That is your suppression, your way of dealing with the terror of all. I don't understand how, unless someone out there is really, really getting something from these videos and they're learning from it and they're tuning in, or they really need to answer a question and they type it in on YouTube and this is the video there, there's no reason to ever watch YouTube. Not really. Not when you're in terror. And it's like my mental health says, yeah, we've had a go at the world, we can get up and get on. And I'm like, I've lost my mind. Whatever my mental health is wanting me to feed me as real, as reality, as life, is losing my mind. So in other words, that new job promotion you want to go for, that new car that you want to go for, that walk in the park that you want to go for, that sip of water you want to go for, goes down to that level. Is your life that this world feeds you to hide the terror of all. What do? I don't know. I'm going to say it now. It's that serious. I'm going to lose my mind. I'm losing it already, but I'm aware of what's going on. I don't know how it's going to happen. Oh, I'm going to be screaming. I'm going to be banging. I can't imagine I'll do anything wrong. It's just not my nature. It's just never has been. But I can't continue like this. I have no options. The people that are there to help, unfortunately, in my circumstance, aren't there to help. And the best many of them will make it worse. I'm alone to the world. I'm alone to the universe. and I'm not able to stick to the action plan because the sleep apnea keeps knocking me out, and where I get knocked out, it just makes me less and less able to focus. The denial of the terror and thinking I had life before allowed me to get up and fight. In that fight, I found terror. I need a psychologist with a good background in terror to tell me how to action plan terror when that is my circumstance. Because unfortunately, I've realized I'm in terror, and I know what that means now. And unless I'm aware that doing this, that, and the other is going to help, nothing is going to help the terror. There's nothing I can do. I don't know if you understand that. Imagine you live alone in a house. And in that place, you've fought to do whatever you need to do. You've gone to work, you've earned your money, you've come home, you've paid your bills, you've gone to the shops, you're able to cook for yourself, clean for yourself, and all of the necessities. And you fight and you've worked and you've really slogged over the last 5-10 years. And you've become strong in that fight. But within that fight, you've become conscious. And that consciousness sees your life as terror. You realize you're in a dead-end job. You realize the fight that you've had for the last 10 years has nearly killed your physical body. The lack of sleep, the poor food, lack of nutrition, lack of good health, the medication that National Health Service gives us, and the medication we go and buy over the counter just to get ourselves through. You realize that your friends aren't really your friends. You realize that that partner that you had that divorced you and left you, what it really meant. And your child that she's taken with you, from you. Your parents have passed away long ago. And within that life, you realize you're alone to the world, alone to the universe, and you find yourself there in the house. In your job, you work for the National Health Service, and you realize the only thing that they can do is give you suppressants. And in that place of terror is the last thing you need. So you're not going to go and speak to the National Health Service. The one caveat to this analogy I have to add on is that that person within that house hasn't explored the world enough to find out that people can't help them. Now imagine, like me, I've explored all the possibilities I am able to do as a result of my past. And I know the National Health Service aren't an answer. I know my family aren't an answer. I know I have no support. I know I have no friends. So if you're yourself in terror and you want to work through terror, that's your way. And you work through it and you try and deal with it for a year or two. You go to this people, that people, the other people. Your friends don't understand. They're still in the ideology of the honour of one is the honour of all. The shame of one is the shame of all. They're still like living 5,000 years ago with computers, laptops and mobile phones. You go and explore the world, you search the internet, and you realise there's no one in the world that can help you with terror unless you've got money. And you can go and find a specific therapist. But as your wife that left you with the child, you're paying keep, well, what's it called, benefits for the child every month, and you've got to keep the mortgage going for the house. You haven't got that money. So after a year or two of being in terror, you realize, hang on a second, I haven't got any options. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to fight anymore when this is the ultimate. Go to work for. You're going to go and explore other options for you. You've given all your energy fighting terror for 2 years, and then you realize, I've wasted all that time and energy. I've made myself more ill. In that time, life has less and less meaning. And then you get to the ultimate realization of all the different elements that make up terror. For me, it was the final realization to realize that, hang on a second, if you add all these elements together, it makes terror. In terror, there's no route, there's no option. So I don't know if it's like AIDS and HIV. You could describe it as when the person believes they find out they're in terror. Initially, that's like the HIV process, until they realize there isn't any more options, and then you could call it AIDS. It's a horrible analogy, but then you haven't really lived terror, and you don't really know terror. I'm sure it must be. I'm not gonna start comparing. And after 2 years of exploring terror through the HIV phase, you get to terror. And you're alone in your home. Nothing has meaning because nothing is going to help. You've given all your energy to it. You've tried and you've tried and you've tried. Nothing's going to remove the complexities of the situation that is your terror. And you're there in your home. And then you start to lose the battle. You're not going to go to work and kill yourself just to keep in touch with terror, are you? Doesn't make sense. Not when you realise you've used the fight. In other words, all that past fighting and gaining consciousness and gaining it. Has just vanished. Because in that moment of realisation that you are in terror, nobody can help. Your mind capitulates. And in that capitulation, you lose all of that energy, all of that hard work is for nothing. And you're losing the fight to terror anyway, and all you had was the strength of the last 12 years, and that's just gone out the window. And you notice things starting happening to your physical body, just like it's shutting down. What does someone do? suicide is an option, but you explored that in your teens and it's just not something to go back to. That's what I mean. I'm losing my mind. That person, that individual would lose their mind. The world doesn't make sense. People walking down the streets laughing and giggling, and that person knows that they're as much in terror. What I imagine that would be the case for other people. It might not be. But really and truly, everything is relatable. And if you've pushed and you've strived within those 2 years of trying to fight the HIV process of terror, you'd know other people, you would have communicated with other people, and questions would have been asked at you, reflection, constant thinking to overcome the horrible process of terror. And in that place, you'd ask yourself a million billion questions, and they would have included other people. And you would be aware that if they're not in terror, they're as close to terror as can be, in denial, somehow. But nobody can help. What does the person do? They're not going to kill themselves. They're not going to go to work. There's no point. I can't express it anymore. There's no point at all going to work. You can't focus when you're in terror and you have no options. I'm going down the shops and I'm trying my best to stick to this very simple action plan, and don't forget, I've had a lot of positive input in my life. I'm a therapist, so since the age of about 20, I've been healing myself. I know how to do it. I had a troubled childhood and I gave so much energy to healing that childhood. The amount of therapy sessions I've been to, this therapy, that therapy, the other therapy. I've been on a diet since I was about 20 for health. I've explored the bulimic traits that were all about the lack of love in my life. And that was an ultimate depression when I was in my teens. And this surpasses it. I'm in terror. I'm not going to work. All I do is go to the shops to get my food and water. If I have to, I'll go and get some petrol for the generator. Take care of whatever necessities are at home to be done so I can function. To give myself hope that all that spiritual belief and energy I've given to spirituality over the years might have a miracle in it for me somewhere. Well, what do? I can't sit, I can't lie. I don't want to make a fucking live stream and speak to another soul. I'm disgusted at humanity. That person hearing the giggles of the people walking down the street. You can't imagine the disgust. But I have to do something, don't I? I can't sleep. I haven't slept in a year and a half. I pass out through sleep apnea. I've tried to sleep. Doesn't work. I'm losing my mind. I can't see another process where I'm not able to be real with the terror in the present and immediate moment. is a clear sign to me I'm losing my mind. I tell you, unless I ever say on these live streams, for whatever reason the terror has passed, I have managed to resolve that problem, which I can't fathom how that would happen. If you ever see me living life in any way, you realize I'd have lost my mind. And the irony is, go back to the start of these videos and watch them back. Watch me and my life. Watch how insane I look. If you see me having a smile on my face and living life and being jolly and everything else and talking about spirituality, this, that and the other, it's because I've lost my mind. And I'll look more sane, sound more sane than I ever did in any of these videos. Can you comprehend that? Who has the mental health disorder? Oh, how you doing, Andreas? I've lost my mind. Oh, I'm doing good because I've lost my mind. What's the problem with your life? Nothing, I'm getting on with stuff. Okay. Do you think medication will ever be given to me? Antipsychotics will ever be given to me even though I've lost my mind? I won't be Andreas, I won't be Gabriel. I'll be a dead, lifeless soul. Is the mental health system a bit backwards? We medicate for the wrong reasons because of how the person looks to society. In that picture I've just painted, it's society that's sick. The whole world is in terror. And I realize I'm in terror. Well, it's taken me to get to look like part of this world. But yet, we will medicate if someone starts going in that direction to the truth. We must keep them in terror. Can you do that, please?